Welcome to Haaretz.com. I'm Aimee Amiga and I'm here with Amos Harel, who has been Haaretz's military analyst for the past 17 years. We're here to discuss a terror attack on a Jerusalem synagogue that killed 5 people. Thank you for joining us, Amos.
Hello.
Amos, you have written, you actually wrote after this terror attack, that the current wave of Palestinian terrorism is starting to take on overtones of a holy war. How much do you think this wave of terror is being motivated by religious agendas as opposed to nationalistic agendas?
I think that for the first time, it's more religious than nationalist. It has to do with 2 major reasons. One is the current conflict regarding the Temple Mount and the Palestinian suspicions, although Israel denies it, that the Israelis are trying to unilaterally change the status quo regarding the Temple Mount. The second reason has to do with the rise of the Islamist state, of Daesh in Iraq and Syria. There are no members of Daesh in the West Bank or in East Jerusalem, but those young Palestinians are influenced by what they see in those videotapes of executions that are on YouTube every day, on that very religious aspect of the hatred and the terrible atrocities going on all over the Arab world. And I think that this influence is finally arriving here in places like East Jerusalem. When you see the images being used, when you see the way they chose a synagogue as their target for attack, it has to do something at least with the effect of Daesh.
Most of the recent terror attacks in this wave of terrorism that Israel's been witnessing were carried out by Palestinians who live in East Jerusalem, who have Israeli ID cards. Whereas in the second Intifada, most of the attacks were carried out by Palestinians from the West Bank. How do you explain this difference?
I think that it mostly has to do with the Temple Mount. And East Jerusalem has been radicalized for years over many, many issues, many complaints about discrimination by the Israeli government and so on. And right now, since it's so close to the Temple Mount, it's affected by everything, by every slight move made regarding the mountain, and also by such incidents as rumors regarding the death of the mysterious death of a Palestinian driver a few days back, a bus driver who apparently committed suicide, but that was enough to create a huge wave of rumors in East Jerusalem neighborhoods that he was actually murdered by Israelis. It hadn't reached the West Bank yet, but we are gradually seeing the effect. And I think that if we don't manage to block it in the next few days, if the Palestinian Authority doesn't take control of the situation, if the Israelis don't talk using the right words with the Palestinian leadership, then this might hit the West Bank in the worst way since perhaps 2005, 2006, the end of the second Intifada.
What kind of language do you think the Israeli leadership should be using?
Not the language, evidently, that's been used for the last few days. All those remarks against Chairman Abbas, I think Abbas made mistakes. The fact that he sent a letter praising a Palestinian who died, was shot by the Israeli police after the assassination attempt of Yehuda Glick, I think that was a very major mistake on the chairman's part. Right. But on the other hand, I think that the PA, regarding everything that's been happening in the West Bank, has been a positive influence for quite some time. It had restrained most of the violence there for years, and if Israelis do not keep those channels of communication open with the PA and its security agencies, then we're facing a whole lot of trouble.
Finally, I'd like to ask you about the Israeli Arab community. Is this violence likely to spread to them if this is some holy war?
It's a possibility, and we've seen that happen in the beginning of the second Intifada. There was the October riots, which started immediately after Sharon's visit to the Temple Mount in the beginning of the second Intifada in September 2000. And the Arab Israelis are very much affected by what's going on in the Temple Mount, and especially the Islamic movement, which is Arab Israeli, is very active on the mountain. On the other hand, I think the memory of what that week of riots in 2000 brought to the relationship between Jews and Arabs in Israel is still very clear. And I think that Arab leaders inside Israel would probably do everything they can to prevent a sort of a rerun of these events in 2000.
Well, let's hope so. Thank you very much for joining us, Amos Harel.
Thank you.
I'm Aimee Amiga, and you're on Haaretz.com.